Yes, indeed, folks, the sounds of Internal Conflict. Check them out, myspace.com/internal conflict band. We will have one more track for you from them coming up a little bit later. Now, time for the patch rundown. I have to do this. I don't have a choice in the matter. I can't say that I'm particularly enthused by it, I must say, but the patch notes are out. The patch has been implemented. The servers are just going back up at this time on the US side, so I'm kind of obliged to talk about it. Unfortunately, there's not really a lot to talk about. Now, some people were perhaps concerned that I sound a little bit nervous today. Well, it's me. I'm never nervous. However, what I can be is distracted. And this whole Emperor thing, I found this out just before the show, but I needed to confirm it before I could tell any of you guys. So, yeah, there was pretty much a major thing going down right here. And obviously we'll be pursuing that to the best of our ability. But I'd like to give a preliminary congratulations to Emperor and, like, hey, I wonder if my video goes up on the EU side under someone else's name. Let's see what happens. Let's steal some content. Who knows? I'm not going to pretend that it's some kind of great conspiracy to keep WoW Radio out of the winning, but I don't think that's very likely. But there's certainly been a screw-up, and obviously that needs to be resolved. So we need to bring home the bacon. We are the best, and that has been proven. Right, that's quite enough of that. So let's talk about the patch notes. Patch 3.1.2 is what went up today. And it contains a lot of really boring stuff, including new art textures, which have been added to the Argent Tournament mounts. Now, I don't know about you, but I can barely see the difference. I mean, let's have a look at these things. You can check them out on MMO Champion, the new textures, quote-unquote. Now, I used to own a Raptor. Yeah, I still do, obviously, the orange Swift Raptor, which is cool. Now, I'm looking at the textures and stuff on the Darkspear Raptor, and it looks exactly the same. It's just a different colour. I don't see any new textures there. I mean, that would imply some actual change. And I'm looking here at the Darnarsian Nightsaber. It looks the same as a normal Nightsaber. What am I looking at here? Am I seeing new textures? I don't think I am. Pretty sure I'm not. I can compare the old models right here. They're pretty much the same. Indeed, actually, I think I prefer the old one. I don't see the difference. These aren't new textures at all. Trying to do the comparison here. No, there isn't actually anything new there. At all. They must be very well hidden, because right now I'm looking at the old one and the new one. Old, new. You can hear the clicking. Backwards, forwards, backwards, forwards, backwards, forwards. It's like an animated GIF. And it looks the same. There's no texture changes at all. It's just a change in colour. So, yeah, that apparently was the headlining feature of today's patch. That should bode really well for the rest of the notes. Yeah, new art textures, which aren't really art textures. Ah. Why? Anyway, the equipment manager is apparently being enabled. Yes, it does what those mods have been doing for years. And it can be enabled in the interface options menu, and it allows players to store sets of equipment, easily swap between saved sets using hotkeys, and pull items directly from backpacks or bank slots. Now, this, again, is not particularly exciting, because as far as I can tell, it doesn't really add anything that stuff like Closet Gnome didn't have already. Other than, oh, it works. Yeah, that would be nice. Now, this has been a feature that's been touted for a little while. It was supposed to come in the last patch, it never did. I suppose it's nice to have for those who have maybe never seen a mod in their lives, and it's nice to have something as part of the Blizzard UI, because invariably it's going to take less memory, one would imagine, than using a mod. But to be honest, Closet Gnome took like 2 kilobytes anyway, so it's not something that I'm particularly thrilled about. Now, next one down the list. PvP. Vehicle health and damage output in Strand of the Ancients and Lake Wintergrasp are now scaled with the item level of the operator's gear. Power scaling is now 1% damage and 1% health per average item level. Right. I don't really have a lot to say about that, because it doesn't really add anything to the experience. I suppose you could argue that, oh, players with better gear should be performing better no matter what. Yeah, I suppose. But, I mean, these are gimmick battlegrounds. I mean, Wintergrasp and Strand of the Ancients, does anyone really pretend they're actual real battlegrounds? No. They're gimmick battles. They're kind of fun, but they're still gimmicky battles. Do we really need scaling? I don't really see what it adds to the game. I suppose it's just a tiny little feature that they copied over from the Flame Leviathan fight. Just for the sake of having it, the sake of completeness, if you will. Also, all Lake Wintergrass daily quests have been changed to a weekly format. The Honor and Stonekeeper shards rewarded for completing these quests have now increased to compensate. Okay. I'm okay with that. You want to know why I'm okay with that? Because that means I don't have to log in every day in order to do those things. Because those things are like the only ones I was maybe really interested in. Because getting some Honor is kind of cool. I don't care about the rest of the daily quests. At all. Not a jot. Why would I? I've got all the money I'd ever need. So, I suppose that's alright. I can see the benefit. I suppose it may also alleviate the number of people that continually go into Wintergrasp. Maybe it's some kind of trick to get you out of Wintergrasp so the servers don't lag anymore. Oh, servers not lagging. Ah, the day that'll happen. It'll sound something like this. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Probably won't happen, but whatever, we can dream. Bunch of class changes that I don't care about, but they did fix mage mirror images. Yay! They're probably breaking. This is the problem. Team Fortress 2 thing, the thing for Steam that pops up in the corner. It's like Great Bacon is now playing Team Fortress 2. So of course, while I'm saying that, I see they're going to bacon it in another way. It's going to be totally bacon or breaking. Ugh. Great Bacon, you have a lot to answer for. Why aren't you listening to my show? You horrible, horrible Fairweather fan. So yeah, the fixed mages. That'll be interesting. Nothing else I really care about. There's a whole bunch of stuff changes to Warlocks, which apparently are nerfs. And I don't care because I'm not a Warlock. Items. They have increased the requirements for item level 239 arena weapons. Good! Because quite frankly, item 239 level weapons should not be in the hands of scrubs. So I'm okay with that. I have no issues. But 2,350, that is a lot of arena requirement. I don't know, maybe because they changed the rating system, it's easier to get, but that's crazy. I don't think I'll be getting that anytime soon. What can I say? And apparently they've also nerfed the agility on the Furious Gladiator staff and the Furious Gladiator's great staff. Apparently the agility values on these were way too high, and they cut them in half. So evidently those things are imbalanced as hell. That's fair enough. Also, all Old War 10 player hard mode item weapons have been updated to item level 232. Now, I did have an email that said, oh, well, that now makes the achievement whereby you beat everything with nothing more than item level 226 impossible. It's one in Old War. Well, yes, it does, but apparently they're going to be updating that achievement. They may have already done so. So, I can't say that I'm particularly worried about that. It was kind of silly and a lack of foresight going on there, but they have changed it quickly, so you can't really whine. New fishing stuff. I couldn't care less. New professions. No, there's actually nothing on profession at all. Dungeons and raid changes to Old War. 10 player bosses that drop ruined orbs will also sometimes drop the recipes that use those orbs. Okay, that's fine. Spark of Imagination. Characters that release in part from this boss room will no longer be ported to Westfall or the Barrens. Well, that's nice, isn't it? We had a guy, actually, that kept trying to get into... It was just the normal siege area of Old War, and he kept getting... sent to Darkshore of all places. I cannot figure out why that was. Apparently, Old War is sort of metaphysical. It's all over the place. It exists in an alternate reality. Hodir should also now reset in a timely fashion if your group fails to kill him. Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. And that's kind of it. Professions. Tailoring now correctly increases ranged attack power and sword guard embroidery. This is the problem. This entire thing is... This is the most boring patch ever. It's funny, because I was listening to an archive. I was just going through some old archives trying to find some material, which I occasionally do. And I found an archive where I actually proclaimed something to be the most boring patch ever. I think it's been beaten. This is the most boring patch ever. It's so dull. There's nothing else to say about it. I'm sure it'll break something. If it breaks something today, that'll be really interesting, because then I can talk about that. Anyway. In the meantime, gonna read a couple of stories about raid burnout, and I've got some emails about the contest as well, but I'm not gonna cover that until I know more. That would be irresponsible. Anyway, got one about raid burnout. Say, hi TB, regarding the raid burnout topic, I must say that I'm facing the same problem right now. I'm quite tired of raiding. Old War has lost its shine, and I'm not really having fun. Part of the problem is, I believe, the sheer amount of bosses and trash you have to wade through before your raid actually reaches progress content. But even then, I am still not feeling like my time is well spent in a raid as it should be. For me, the problem is that when an officer is on time is that as an officer in a time where our guild is having problems with sign-ups, I simply cannot just drop raiding and say, you're on your own, lads. I hope it will pass in time, though. That's from Absolar, level 80 rogue. Yeah, that's a bit of a problem. I'm not class leader or anything. I used to be in Lethe a long time ago, and I used to raid lead various guilds on Rise of Go, but I don't anymore. I'm just a grunt. And that's fine by me. That's actually all I want at the moment. But I can imagine it would be tricky. Got another one here from Vati. Says, hey TB, my guild is currently progressing on Yogg Saron. We're getting very good progress, but we're slipping more and more each day, ramming our heads on the boss, which we just can't seem to grasp. Isn't doing our raid any good at all. This is amplified by the exam period and the summer season coming up, which is usually a guild killer for everyone. Taking a break at this time would, I think, what other people think... What? Cause more damage... that doesn't make any sense. Anyway, apparently it caused more damage to progress and seems like a bad thing. But now with the relaxation of difficulty in Tier 7 and the steady increase we've gotten rusty anyway, we're used to face rolling it and getting bored, and I don't feel like a lot of us have snapped out of the not getting bored side of things. From where we're coming from making gold on progression raids in Tier 7 to spending 300 gold a night on consumables and repairs, I think it's still shocking people and causing the burnout. Yeah, this is something I did mention, yeah? I mentioned that this would probably happen as a result of, oh, terrible content, oh, new content that's challenging, culture shock. For the last 6 months we've been doing this, now we're doing this, I'm scared. You know, something like that. I can understand that may cause a different kind of burnout. A few more. Go on here. Hey TB, new fan, and I had a question for you. My wife plays a hunter and would like to raid and is looking for a raiding guild at the moment. She reads forums and listens to fellow players, and they all say survival spec is the raid spec for hunters. She is BM and loves her spec, doesn't want to switch. So I was wondering where you stand on the subject of everyone must be spec to what the forums or the general idea of the proper raiding spec is, or people should spec how they like and enjoy the time on WoW in raid. That is of course assuming she can raid and that people tell her that she can't go just because she isn't survival. Long story short, wondering what your ideas are. Spec for your raid or play how you want. Here's the thing, right, there's not just one viable spec anymore, there are multiple viable specs. Beast Mastery was certainly great in Burning Crusade. I don't know how it is now, but I imagine it's still pretty competitive. It doesn't matter if you're not doing 100% of your potential DPS every fight, as long as you are providing some other benefit. And yes, there is a benefit provided, as I recall. I don't know what it's called, it was that buff that increases damage in the group. That's a buff, that's useful. So it's about doing competitive damage, and more to the point, doing what you're supposed to be doing. Now, player over class. As much as I disagree with the whole bring the player, not the class thing, I do believe in player greater than class. Yeah? The player should be more important than the class. I don't think it's the only important thing. The synergy between the player and the class is vitally important. But I think the player really has the decider. You know, they get to make the final call on whether or not they get a raid spot, based entirely on their own skill. So, give it a shot. I'm sure there's probably a viable BM spec. Go and read on Elitist Jerks, because I imagine they've got an entire thread dedicated to it. You know, they've got a Frostfire thread and everything. You know, there's several viable mage specs, but the top one at the moment is Fire Torment the Weak. Yeah, not by much, Arcane is very close. But there are threads, regardless, on all different kinds of specs and how to make them perform well. And let's face it, with the kind of people you're going to be going up against, bearing in mind WoW is absolutely full of nobs, what can I say? Doesn't matter what spec you are, as long as you're a good player, you're going to outperform those guys anyway. And you never know, you might find that you actually do want to respec once you get in raiding. You might want to respec survival because you just might want to do more damage, and that can come as a natural personal decision as opposed to something that you get forced upon you. Now, I've got one more email before I go to the break and do the illusion of choice, and it says this. It's from Andrew Dingle, and he says this: I floated about in BC as a holy paladin, as well as Wrath content as a DPS DK, raiding with several guilds, and burnout for me always came fast, as a matter of fact. I used to say that I would burn through burnouts, just because I couldn't put the game down. When I finally did find a good guild to stick around with, good-hearted people, no one really bugged me, good raiding progress, 90% of the raid core ran off in the middle of the night, leaving the guild high and dry. The remnants kind of fell apart afterwards, and I jumped to a different server, tired of the whole raiding thing, to grind yet again. Maybe come back later. At any moment, I'm willing to go back to Final Fantasy XI, which I left due to annoying people I was cursed to meet. I called that place a sandy hell, even though it made me curse my very life. I'm looking on my time in the Vanadil very kindly right now. Yes, that really has barely anything to do with it. Congratulations, you've sent me an email that makes very little sense. My name is Total Biscuit, and you're listening to Blue Please here on WoW Radio. It'll be a little longer than usual because I'm going to play this final track from Eternal Conflict EP. This one's a little bit long, it's about 8 minutes of awesome. It's And the Penny Drops, and I'll be back after this with the Illusion of Choice. Don't go anywhere, folks. My name is Total Biscuit, this is Blue Please on WCRadio.com. Enjoy.
Force.